And the guy said to me, "Well, you sound like what we call a medium." And we're investigating that, and I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Those are people who talk to the dead." And I went, "What?" And I hung up, and I never spoke of it for almost 5 years. A spirit might come and it shocks me so much because I'm sleeping and they wake me. Sometimes they'll shake me physically.
Mm.
And I go away. I have that repeated pattern. And then I go, "Oh, wait, who are you?" And I've had one come in without a head.
What happens when we die? Is there are spirits going back and forth, or are they all in heaven, or what's that process from what you've experienced? Susan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen you. I think it was 2018, 2019 maybe, right before the pandemic. It was
Yeah.
probably 2019. We were in GOOP Health,
hmm
and like those were the good old days, right? Where there were just such an eclectic, diverse group within wellness, where there's doctors and nutritionists and people in the spiritual wellness world too, all kind of there talking about their spaces, right? That was fun.
It was so fun. It was the best time. And
Yeah.
and we met there. That's where we
Yeah.
met.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let's jump right in and maybe sort
Okay.
of set the stage to what you do. You are a medium. Is that the best way to put it? And then
hmm
for people that don't know, like what is, maybe they know a little bit about it, but let's cut through the myths and misconceptions.
Okay. So I have different roles. I'm a therapist. I'm a medium. And I have my doctorate in divinity, so I work with children who have near-death experiences. How I became a medium, what a medium is. So a medium is someone who is able to connect to the spirit realm,
Hmm.
and also can connect to intuition quite easily. So how does health connect with that? Well, when you're intuitive, you understand, especially when you're looking at your intuitive being, you
Hmm.
understand your body more. You
Yeah.
get the signs and the signals much quicker than if you're not. And if you're
Yeah.
paying attention and learn how to do that, you can keep yourself in a more well position,
Yeah.
emotionally, physically, and spiritually. As a medium, I connect into people's loved ones. I'm a grief and addiction therapist, so I've been doing that all of my life, and so it seemed right,
Mhm.
that I would step into something else that would be healing for people.
Yeah. I mean, the podcast is called The Art of Being Well. We really do cover a diverse number of topics that impact wellness, and kind of studying the science and art of that, all of
hmm
that. And this is a topic that I haven't had the chance to really dig into deep until now, which is why I wanted you on the pod, because I knew you were the expert to go there. And you sort of blend the Western and the metaphysical, if you will, the physical and the metaphysical into one, which I think is beautiful. All right. So, how long was the spirit world, the sort of spiritual side of life? How long has that been a part of your life that you knew? Obviously, it's a part of life for everyone, whether they notice it or not. But how long have you had an awareness of your connection to it?
Well, at 3.5 years old, I wasn't aware, but I could see spirit animals floating when they would pass, and I just thought that was normal. My family had this gift. Some of the people in my family had this ability, so it wasn't anything that they were afraid of, but I never talked about it because it seemed normal. At 4.5 years old, I was right on the edge of five. I got locked in an unplugged freezer in a garage. It was
Mm.
quite a profound experience. I was in there a very long time. I shouldn't be here and I shouldn't have a brain, if I was. I mean, I really like it should have shut down. Um, and when I came back from that experience, I could see spirits everywhere. And I was actually terrified. Even though I'd seen them on the other side, I was terrified. I thought they were there like the boogeyman because I was so little.
Hmm.
And then I would cover my head and say, go away. And they didn't go away. And so I adapted to it like we adapt to everything in our lives. And as time went on, it became my abnormally normal. And I just kept flowing from there. I wasn't aware that it was different. I have to say that. It just felt like the boogeyman. Every kid knows the boogeyman, right? And then when it became normal to me, I wasn't aware it was different until it became personal. My
Hmm.
Nana died and I was in my late teens, and I was married, late teens, and I was laying in bed, and she came to me, and I didn't know she had crossed, And the next day I found out. So
Mm.
that was so shocking to me that I actually called UCLA Medical Center. They were doing ESP work and they
Mm.
were just starting it, because, this was many, many years ago. And the guy said to me, "Oh, you sound like what we call a medium. And we're investigating that, and I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Those are people who talk to the dead." And I went, "What?" And I hung up and I never spoke of it for almost 5 years. I was just terrified and it kept happening and happening, but I didn't talk about it. They'd literally come to me and go, "Wake up, I just died. And my name is, and I'm so and so sister's best friend, and you're going to find out I died. And I didn't do it on purpose. They think I did. Please talk to them." And then I'd get a call. So and so's brother's best friend died. And I'd have this information. So it was just constant. Didn't know how to control it, had to learn. But, that's kind of the story.
Yeah, man. Okay, so were you raised in a spiritually minded household? You mentioned like people in your family maybe had some of this. Did you know that when you first noticing it? Was it something that was talked about in the home?
That part was not. So they actually put my mother in an institution and said she had a mental breakdown and medicated her. And so my mother didn't want anything to do with it. She was terrified. And my father got her out. If he had not gotten her out, they would have kept her forever. And they did keep her on meds. Unfortunately, she took them because she was so afraid of the voices and what she was seeing and experiencing, feeling.
Hmm.
So my mom would say to me, "Don't talk about it." But I was raised Catholic the first 4.5 years. And then after this happened to me and I was seeing spirits, we stopped going to church. I don't think it was because of that. I think it was because of what happened to my mom, but it correlated in timing.
Got it. Okay, so you mentioned kind of running away from it when you kind of called that institution and they said, "Oh, this is what a medium is talking to the dead." It scared you. How long did it take for you to come back around and own it and not see it as something to be feared?
Um, well, I didn't probably another 5 or 6 years when I started talking about it again. And I stopped fearing it. However, I will tell you, there's been times even up until now where a spirit might come and it shocks me so much because I'm sleeping and they wake me. Sometimes they'll shake me physically.
Mm.
And I go away. I have that repeated pattern. And then I go, "Oh, wait, who are you?" And I've had one come in without a head.
Oh my
And I just saw the body and I kept saying, "Who are you? Who are you?" They wouldn't tell me. I got scared. I said, "Go away." And it's so funny because my daughter was awake. It was 5:30 in the morning. She was getting ready to go to the gym. She's a grown woman, a young woman. And she said the next day when I got, and I wrote it down. So the next day when I got up, my daughter said, "Mom, you won't believe this. There was a spirit walking out of your room and it had no head and it was staring at me." And I said,
God.
"Well, how do you know it was staring at you if it had no head?" And it dawned on me, my daughter has this gift because she wouldn't have seen it the way she saw it and also feeling the stare. And she said, "I ran in my room and covered my head like you used to when you were little." And I said, "Go away." And I don't want that to ever happen again. It scared me to death. So, it was in my home at that point.
Got
So
it.
it became familiar in my late 20s. I think in my 30s, I started to own it. And then in my 40s, 50s, 60s, of course, it became my
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah. Do you feel like, from your perspective, some people have this gift, this sixth sense, some people don't? Or do you feel like it's all of our skill set, is whether we have it strengthened or in tune to it or not?
I think everyone has the ability. Whether they're going to use it in this lifetime is between them and the spirit world and their contracts. So some people have it and use it very little. And some people have it and don't want anything to do with it. And that includes intuition. We all have intuitive abilities.
Hmm.
If we tapped into it instead of using fear as the basis to deflect it on,
Hmm.
we would actually be in a much better position. But, as I said earlier, mind, body, and spirit,
Hmm.
that connection to all of it is connected. Our heart has 40,000 neurites and it goes out about 3 feet from our body in energy. And those neurites have memory capacity, they have learning capacity. That is where our soul seats.
Hmm.
And the heart actually talks to the brain more than the brain talks to the heart. The heart is actually in more control. And if the soul is seating in there,
Hmm.
it makes sense to us that we want to listen to what our soul's telling us so that we can
Hmm.
be, it goes through the heart space and comes to us as intuition.
Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit on the pod. Is this sort of heart resonance and heart math and the research around that sort of emotional intelligence and resonance and how that's impacting our brain, not the other way around. In many ways, it's
Mhm.
bidirectional, right? And many people, as we used, as we in functional medicine call the gut the second brain. Well, research to show the heart is really the second brain, if you will, an aspect, right, of that whole line down
Yes.
the center of our body. Okay, this is fascinating. What do you say to somebody that's skeptical? That's like, what, like, why would there be a spirit without a head? Like, why, if they're a spirit, why would they have no head? Is that the spirit? Is the spirit wants to show you? And what if they're just skeptical as a whole? Like, this can't be real. There's no such thing as ghosts.
I get it because I doubt it sometimes too. I get it. We have a human brain and we think and we analyze. And if we analyze something and it's not tangible to us, we deny it.
Hmm.
They probably come in front of me as complete whole, and they probably say everything, but I'm having a human experience. I can't hear it all. I can't see it all. I wish I could. I think. I don't know how that would be. But if you think about the difficulties that they may have to get it across to us, that's important to remember.
Hmm.
And our difficulty in not getting inside our heads and just
Hmm.
allowing it to be there for us. So
Hmm.
it's not a perfect science. And,
Hmm.
unfortunately, I don't think anything is perfect in science. And definitely it makes sense. But if you're skeptical, that's okay. I'm skeptical too sometimes. And
Yeah.
then they show me again. I couldn't have known that information. So
Hmm.
I go to work and I'll say to my team, I'll say, maybe this all isn't real. Maybe this is really bad. Maybe I'm hurting people. And I get a little panicked inside. And sometimes at night when I go to bed, that happens to me. And I hate that feeling. And then they'll say to me, well, tell us how you feel when you come out of your readings. And I'll come out and go, I couldn't have known that. That's impossible. Oh my gosh, it's real. So I do that too.
Hmm.
It's okay to be a skeptic, and you should be.
Hmm.
But I have this one thing I want to say about that. People say to me, what you can't see it. And I said, you can't see tomorrow either, but you know it's coming. Even if you're not on the planet, tomorrow's coming.
Hmm.
That's the
Well,
universal energy.
yeah, yeah. I love it. So, and I've even seen researchers, I think it's University of Virginia, right, that has for years taken up older research looking at past lives, and that's intimately connected, right? It's sort of the soul's journey, whether, so is can we talk about that? Maybe past lives is another topic that I think is fascinating, and I find it intimately connected to what we're talking about with the spirit world. But what's your thoughts there? And then can you talk about the research that has been done in a clinical research setting, understanding these phenomenons? Like, we don't understand it fully, like you said, it's not perfect science, but there's something going on, so we can't deny it.
Yeah. Well, we can't deny it, and especially with the children, because children don't have information yet. Children that can't read are talking about they were firemen, this was their name, this is how they died, this was the building that burned down. I mean, they can't know this information that is
Hmm.
so profound. And so that's what they study very commonly. Like I study NDEs with children. It's
Hmm.
powerful. I'm
Yeah.
a
So
licensed hypnotherapist,
for people
so
that don't
I
know, NDEs are near death experiences, right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So, so I'm a licensed hypnotherapist. I do past life regression. And what I find with past life regression is this beautiful connection to what am I holding on to now? What did I bring with me? What, not karmically. It's not about karma. I think karma is misunderstood completely. It's about what did I bring with me that I am not letting go of in my soul. So your soul, remember your heart has all the memory. That's what goes with your soul. It seats in your soul, or your soul
Hmm.
seats in your heart. That goes together. This has got a lot of junk in it. So
Hmm.
the soul has a memory. And in that memory comes some of our choices, our decisions, our fears, our apprehensions. And so when they do a past life regression, of course, they're able to move back to that, see what happened, and understand, oh, that's why I'm afraid of water, terrified of water. I drowned
Hmm.
previously. So that's just an example.
Hmm.
Excuse me. So I see that all the time. Someone will be able to connect those dots, which
Hmm.
makes the journey here less formidable,
Hmm.
less frightening, and they usually can work through it. So I really believe that we are here for soul expansion. And in that soul expansion, we have to work through everything that occurs in our journey. And that includes previous journeys. When I was on the other side, I was in the room of knowledge. People call it the Akashic records. I just relate to the room of knowledge because it's been since childhood. And I watched this family making decisions about the journey, and they were saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I asked the spirit realm, what are they doing? And they said they're making, they're planning their next incarnation. So, and then they were gone. Poof, they were gone. And so when I was about, I don't know, 13 years old, someone asked me, do you believe in reincarnation? I'd never thought about it. I didn't know what that word meant. I never asked about it. And I went, oh my gosh, there's that word. I do know what it is. So I understood at that point what they were talking about. So I know now that it's absolute, that it
Hmm.
really is there, and also
Hmm.
from all the studies.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I have another sort of inquisitive contrarian mind. I want to understand how you would talk about this because, there's different people listening to this right now. What do you say to the person that is maybe grew up in a traditional religious home? They're more conservative, religious, spiritually, if you will, and they think all this they were taught in church. They read in the Old Testament in the Bible where they talk about, mediums are bad and these are like bad things that we shouldn't go to. What do you say? Do you have anything to say to that perspective?
I do. So in Corinthians, it also talks about my brothers and sisters, I give you these gifts. The gift of sight, the gift of knowing who you're speaking to that's crossed to the other side, the gift of
Hmm.
intuition, the gift of prophecy, etc. So we skip over that. That's always skipped over, and people
Yeah.
always go to the dark side. So if you're interested in reading about that, I believe it's Corinthians 7, if I'm getting it right. Corinthians 1, 7, I believe. But it's important to, if you are someone who believes in the Bible and has come from that place of learning that this is evil, it's okay. It's okay if you have that
Hmm.
belief system. We have to honor every single belief system there is. But please know that there is nothing evil about someone healing their grief. And
Hmm.
a true medium is actually in a healer mode. We're holding space for people who are in pain, and we help them connect to their loved one to let them know that they haven't left them, that
Hmm.
love doesn't die. They want to know you, that you're okay, that they want to be near you as much as you want to be near them. They love you as much as you love them.
Hmm.
And so, that doesn't leave us. So that's a really beautiful experience to have when someone comes in my office and their arms are crossed and my wife dragged me in here and I don't believe this at all. I already know the spirit realm's going to go zoom right into them, and they do. And that same person will walk out sobbing. You couldn't have known that conversation, you couldn't have known those things. I believe. I don't even
Hmm.
know how to feel right now because religiously I'm not supposed to. It's supposed to be evil. But
Hmm.
yet here I am.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I honor that they feel that way, but I'd love for them to go deeper into the truth of understanding
Right.
of what, we were gifted with.
Right. And I think that, like, you brought up a good point. Like, the context around some of these things are cherry picked and taken out of context in the original intent. And as you said, at many spiritual traditions, Christian and otherwise, talk about prophecy and getting that inner knowing. But would you say that there probably is, to take that perspective, probably some light and some dark people that could probably relay that message? Is that a fair assessment, and maybe having discernment on who you're getting this information from?
Oh, absolutely, because I truly believe that evil exists in the minds of mankind.
Hmm.
I truly believe that. I have never seen anything in the spirit realm that has been evil. And so the dark, or the feeling of evil, or the thinking of evil, or the, rejection of light and love, all of that exists inside our thinking. So
Hmm.
if we are raised with the thinking and knowledge about how this could be evil, then we're going to believe that to be true. And to change that kind of ingrained system in our brains
Hmm.
is very difficult. But I see people do it all the time. I have more Jewish and Catholic people in my office than anything. Isn't
Hmm.
that it?
Yeah.
And Christian. I mean,
Yeah.
like you wouldn't expect that. And I'll say, was your mother Catholic? Because she's putting a cross in front of me, like, oh yeah, I'm Catholic. We're Catholic. My whole family's Catholic.
Yeah.
And so, I love that because they grief is the lowest vibrational energy outside of hate.
Mm,
We are vibrating so low. So that's why we can't all see them. That's one of the reasons they can't get through that. So people say to me, why can't I see them the way you do? They're my loved one. Well,
mhm,
because you're in grief, and grief
mm,
is low in vibration. I tell them, turn on music, do dance, laughter, which is the hardest thing to do when we're grieving. And
mhm.
grief is very powerful. So we think, oh, I think I feel better now. And we're in the grocery store and we pick up a can of beans and all of a sudden we burst into tears because there's a mom with a daughter standing in the corner and we lost our mom. Right. And
Mhm,
we burst into tears and go, where did that come from? And everything stops at that moment. And
mhm,
it's like it's in the corner doing push-ups, waiting for us to be vulnerable. So it's
mhm,
very powerful in our journey. It's also very necessary.
mhm.
Grief is a very powerful, necessary process in our journey.
Yeah.
It teaches us that love prevails and that we can still survive any circumstance because it's the hardest of circumstances. A
Yeah.
medium deals with the darkest, deepest pain. We're holding the soul basically of a loved one, and we're talking to the soul of someone in the spirit world, and we're trying to bring that together to ease the pain. A
Mhm.
true medium.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for that. That's beautiful. I mean, it seems like definitely you're having visitations from these spirits. I've heard some people say, well, they're kind of discussing maybe the mechanism. You mentioned ESP, in that when you're having a session with somebody, are you picking up their memory of their past, of their relative, or is it the relative, or it doesn't it matter, or is it both?
It's both.
Got
And
it.
I feel so for me, when I read, I want to be connected to the spirit realm only. I
Hmm.
don't, so I always look out away so that I'm not reading any sign language, any movements, body language, and that I'm not connecting in. So I actually, a good medium, so mediumship is outside of us and intuition's internal, it's in the gut.
Hmm.
So, when we're doing mediumship, we're outside of ourselves and we are connecting into the spirit world. They give a memory. We might feel the extra part of that memory from the person sitting with us, but we wouldn't be able to give the information we give if we're evidential medium.
Hmm.
We wouldn't be able to give that information clearly from just, I can't read your mind. I
Hmm.
can't read anyone's mind. I can be very
Got it.
clear about that. I wish I could sometimes. And then I go, no, I don't want to, but, I
Better off
can't.
not. Yeah, right.
Yeah, better off
Okay.
not.
But you would say, I mean, some people that would call themselves psychic, that's what they're saying they can do, right? They can read someone's mind, or is that a myth?
I'm not real popular in the spirit realm because I'm
All
going to
right.
say this, but I'm going to
Okay, let's
say it.
go there.
Okay. Um, Free will is involved in our journey. And if free will could be read, it would not be free will, it'd be a planned event. So,
Hmm.
how would our soul expand and have choices? Choices are important. So, my feeling is we pick up trajectories of what might happen because we are so intuitive. And also, there's commonality in the human experience. So
Hmm.
we pick up experiences, but my real true feeling about it is that we cannot tell the future. We
Hmm.
might be able to get a trajectory or something that might click in, like an event or something like that, because we are
Hmm.
connected to the spirit world. They may be warning us,
Hmm.
listen, there's going to be a plane crash, 9/11. A lot of people felt it. That makes sense to me because the spirit world is letting us know. However, if I knew your free will, it'd be a planned event. It wouldn't be free will. You'd be a robot. What are you doing here? You might as well stay on the other side and never come. So free will is about everything we do. I walk in a door. We have doors. We have choices every single day. Our soul expands from that, good and bad. Pain is our greatest motivator for change. That doesn't mean that's all we have here, but it is our greatest motivator. I want out. So
Hmm.
say we walk in a door of marriage, we want to get married and we meet this person and we walk in this door and we go, this is my person. And then halfway in, we realize this person's a narcissist.
Hmm.
I got to either make a decision here. This is a choice now on my part. I I I could turn around and walk out that door and change the trajectory, or I can go forward and marry this person. What I do know is these are the planned events.
Hmm.
Marriage may be a planned event. My soul wants to resonate in the understanding of that. Maybe in a previous lifetime, I had trouble with that, or I loved it, whatever it is. I will be married. I might be 98 years old, but I'll be married on this journey. Okay. Who I marry, how long I married, the kind of marriage I have is all free will. Whether I stay married, whether I decide to become a drug addict or an alcoholic or abusive or narcissistic, maybe not all free will, but definitely part of the human experience.
Hmm.
That is out of their control.
Got it.
So that's why I have trouble with
Yeah.
reading minds and
Hey,
looking into the future.
I
And
get
I
it. I
want to
get.
say we can because I love my fellow workers. They all have, almost all of them have really good intent. I just can't go there. It makes no sense to me. And the spirit world makes sense. They
Hmm.
gave us our common sense, and we can make sense of our senses. It's
Hmm.
just a matter of are we going to? So, it makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, I say put it aside.
Hmm. Well, I think it's good. It's clarifying the nuance, I think, of this world that many people are just learning about now. So, seeing what you've seen, experiencing what you've experienced, are there religious or spiritual traditions that you feel are maybe the closest to what you see? Would you define yourself as one thing, or do you see it all as one? I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
I see it all as one. I truly do. We are one consciousness. So when I was in the room of Heart's Desire, which is the first room I walked into or was pulled into, quite honestly, um, I was looking at this well, and I worked under Dr. Raymond Moody. I actually studied under him and got my doctorate through studying under him in divinity. And he's a philosopher, and I said to him, Raymond, I didn't see the tunnel. Why didn't I see the tunnel? And he said, have you ever thought the well was the tunnel? Wow. What a moment of clarity, because what I saw was one consciousness. Everything was coming together, moving like DNA. It was words and prayers and thoughts. And
Mm,
it was things like, my mother has cancer. Please, God, don't let her die. My dad's going to get me a new car, but now he says he won't, and I'm turning 16. Please, God, make him get me the car. There was all these different thoughts and prayers coming in. And when I asked the spirit realm, I call them my angels, um, where am I? And they said, you're in the room of heart's desires. And I said, do you answer all those? Because I'm little and I want to know, like, if I say it and think it, can I get it? And they said, no, Susie, sometimes what people desire the most isn't good for them.
mm,
That was a true, profound statement they made. And I didn't understand it at the time, but I do now fully.
mhm, mhm,
So, but it was all one consciousness moving together, all one need, basically.
mhm,
So we are all the same and yet all individualized. They
mhm,
create us as an individual specifically as we are. There's no one like us, not one hair on my head is like anyone else's, but yet on a DNA level, we are all one. We all have, or maybe not a DNA level, but on a bottom line level, we all have the same. So it's the same thing with the spirit realm. Did that
got it.
answer the question?
Yeah,
I kind of went
100%.
off and okay.
Nope, you laid it out perfectly. I get what you're saying. So this is so amazing. So okay, from your perspective now, what happens when we die? Is there are spirits going back and forth, or are they all in heaven, or what's that process from what you've experienced?
So how I see this is they vibrate right next to us, and I look at it as an analogy like this. A sloth moves very slow, and when we're in grief or we're in on this plane as just a human being, we're very slow moving in vibration. This is a very low vibrational energy here. It truly is.
Hmm.
And a medium would be like a butterfly. They vibrate higher. And then you have the hummingbird. And if you think about, if we take a picture of a hummingbird, we have to slow it way down even to see its wings moving. I mean,
Hmm.
way down. That's how fast it's vibrating. So they're actually vibrating right next to us. So think of it this way. By the time a sloth is able to move and look at that hummingbird, it's gone to 60,000 different places. And
Mm,
we are only, and the medium is in the middle, and they only see bits and pieces of that.
hmm.
So they are in vibrational energy. They are right next to us. They are not interested in our human experience, meaning they're not. watching what you're doing, and they're not, private things. When you are thinking of them, wanting them, needing them, or acknowledging them, they'll be there because they're not interested in your private things or reading your mind. They're interested in the love. The love brings them in, the vibration brings them in. So people say to me, how do I connect? And I talk about this in my book continuously. The way to connect to the spirit realm is not about thinking about it, but it is about awareness of them being there. So I become aware that something's changed in the room. Maybe
Hmm.
there's a movement, or I feel cold, or my hair stands on end, or I get chills. I become aware and I acknowledge that awareness. They go, oh, wow, she's aware I'm here. I'm going to vibrate even faster. She's aware.
Hmm.
Then the next step is acceptance. I'm going to accept there's something going on here, and maybe it's my loved one. I'm just going to accept that. And they
Hmm.
go, wow, they accepted me. They accepted me. Okay, we're in. And then it's action, which is simply trust. I'm going to
Hmm.
trust they're there. And so when I get the message, so say I get a thought in my head, I'm thinking about them, I get a thought in my head. Our our thinking goes, that's probably just me thinking they'd say that.
Hmm.
But if I don't do that and I say, I'm aware, I accept, and I trust you're here. Thank you for the message. Even if it wasn't them, I can't be wrong. And this is why. The minute they recognize that you're going to hear them that way, they're going to come from then on.
Hmm.
So you're
Got it.
teaching them how you're going to listen to them. So in their vibrational energy, they're trying to connect with you at all times. They are not out there somewhere in the ethers. They are
Hmm.
actually near us, around us,
Hmm.
experiencing some of the things we're experiencing and connected to our love source. Now, they don't have a human brain anymore. They don't need it. They have the heart. So that's why love is the connection. Joy is the connection. Laughter is the connection. Music, they love to connect with music. Music comes from the spiritual realm. That's why it's so healing. It's why it takes us to all our memories. It takes us to tears. It takes us to laughter. It takes us back to childhood. It comes from the spirit realm to elicit emotion. So
Got
when
it.
you play music, they're hearing it, they're experiencing it, they come in. So I know the belief is that they're somewhere out in the ethers,
Hmm.
waiting to come back alive. This is the Christian belief system. They're waiting to come back alive. They're almost in a stop moment or a non-moment. That does not correlate with what I've experienced, nor does it
Hmm.
correlate with anything that makes sense,
Yeah.
because love doesn't leave.
Right. So it's more the concept of heaven is more interdimensional frequency, not some other place other than in
Yes,
here.
exactly.
Yeah. Got it. So where does like the concept of reincarnation fit into this perspective? Like at some point, I'm assuming if this is the case, like there are some relatives that aren't there, or is it just the remnants of them that do need to get just understanding are everybody's relatives there, or is some being reincarnated so they're TBD on them communicating with you?
I truly believe we have a higher self on the other side. I truly believe that. I saw it, I experienced it, I felt it. And there's a crossroads. So when I was there, there was this, um, I want to call it a crystal, but I don't know if it was. And I could see movement in it. It was bodies and faces. And I tried to put my hand in it and I couldn't. And the reason I couldn't is because that was the other side and I wasn't going to stay. And so I wasn't able to get there. That was the true new process. That was the highest self.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe we would implode if we brought our highest self here because we are so beautiful. We are
Mm-hmm.
so magnificent, and our souls are. And so I believe a portion of us that needs to learn a particular, wants to learn is in different dimensions, different
Yeah.
dimensional experiences. And so, yes, they are still there for us. And that's why we
Yeah.
can still discuss and talk with them.
That makes sense to me. And when you look at sort of even ancient perspectives, like ancient Hebrews always talked about the sparks of somebody's soul. And that's how they explained it. It's like these certain sparks maybe would have to be recycled, this concept until the end of days, the coming of Mashiach. But there was like this higher, more pure light source of it. Yeah, I totally get
It's
that.
kind
So
of like, and we have fire in LA right now, so this might not be a great analogy, but I do want to use it anyway. Think of a fire and the power of the fire and all the little sparks that fly off of it
mhm.
and create other situations.
Hmm.
other little flames or other big flames. It's kind of like that. So the consciousness is one
Yeah.
big, giant, powerful thing, and we are sparks coming off of
Right.
it.
Right. When you talk, these are complex things. We've got quantum physics and time and space and
I wrote down quantum physics. That's so
it's like it's like I mean we're not going to be able to help to understand for everybody, but yeah, these are things that are worth exploring. The Where does God fit in all of this? Is this something that you see as part of our understanding?
I do. I actually, and I don't know, if it's for me, it's God. For someone else, it might be called something else, but it's all one experience. I saw it. I was sitting in a field with animals, and I looked to my left, and quite honestly, it's extremely emotional for me if I when I talk about it because it was a being on a mountain basically, and I wanted to get up the mountain and I couldn't. And I was looking at this being, this huge entity of love, and I wanted to feel it so badly. And I ended up being almost like a beam, a ray coming towards me and enveloped me like a blanket of love that I've never felt again in my life, Jared. I've been
Mm,
searching for it. It's just not here. But it's the most beautiful love and
mhm.
experience. And that came from an entity. Now, could it have been millions of consciousnesses inside this being? Yes, I don't know. I can't describe that for anyone. Sometimes I think that. Sometimes I feel like all of our highest selves are with this being and part of this being.
Mhm.
But that was real. That was real to me and overwhelmingly beautiful. I was everything and I was nothing. And
Mm.
I was perfect in every way
Yeah.
at that moment.
I've heard people talk about explain it like we are all in the mind of God, right? And try to explain it. It's like we're a part of this larger cosmos. The Okay, so near death experiences, kind of you touched on it, even your own experience there. What is the wildest near death experience that you heard of that would just blow people's minds?
Well, I think the scary ones were the ones that blow people's minds and really send us into a dark fear of the spirit world, and we don't need to fear it. So I asked the spirit world, I need you to explain to me why people see these have these dark experiences when they cross temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
And they made it make sense to me. And what they said to me was, this person that had this experience, if you talk to them, you will find that they lived life in a very unhealthy way. We've done everything we know how to do to change the trajectory for them, and they're not listening. Don't think we don't realize they're coming back. And you will find that when they have that experience and they come back, they change the trajectory of who they are completely. All the bad behaviors go away and they become one with us again. So don't think for a moment we're not aware that they're coming back. We allow them this experience to change their thinking and to change where they're headed on their journey here.
Got it.
Now that made sense to me.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I mean, I've seen so many accounts of near death experiences where a lot of people see very similar or identical things. Kind of what you said, this sort of oneness, this sort of ultimate source of love and compassion. And then I think of very similarly the experiences of people that have done in therapeutic settings psychedelics and their experiences of seeing the spirit world. Is that connected between psychedelics and near death experiences? And what's your if you could elaborate more on what people are seeing.
Okay. So I believe they're tapping into the same area of the existence. I do. And I believe there's an area of our brain, just like a medium, if when they study mediums, they go into a different area of their brain when they're doing mediumship, an area that's not used generally. On this planet, at least, we're not using it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think the psychedelics tap us into that area also. And NDE is near death experience. So I want to really be clear about that for people because there are people that have an experience with psychedelics that can be very healing for them. There are people that have an experience where their heart doesn't stop, yet they believed they were going to die. That is near death.
Hmm.
They were outside of their bodies. I have a friend who got in a car crash and it was very, very serious. And she actually does ketamine. And is
Mm.
it ketamine? Is that how?
Ketamine.
Um,
Ketamine, yeah.
Ketamine. Thank you. I knew I said it wrong. Um, she does, she had an accident. Her children were in it. She said went out. She wasn't near death, but she went outside of her body, and it was as though a whole nother level of consciousness existed. And she saw she was moving from her children, watching to see if they were survived, if they were okay, because it was a serious accident. And she was watching, police coming. She was watching everything, a man pull up and all these things, but she was outside of her body. To me, that is a near death experience, but she was still in this consciousness.
Hmm.
With psychedelics, it moves you into another level of consciousness that we just don't tap into on a general basis. So I think it can be very healing done under the right circumstances with the right people who are experts at what they do and know the field. I think when people go out and do psychedelics, it's dangerous. Because we don't know if there's any mental illness involved in that, if they're going to have trouble. I've had someone come to me that did a psychedelic on his own and said, please put me back to where I was. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
really sad. And I said, I don't have that power. I
yeah.
can't because I'm
It almost opens them up to things that they can't. They're not ready for.
right,
Yeah,
right.
it's
So,
yeah,
but if they're under controlled situation and controlled environment, I've heard of many people that it actually helps. I personally would not do it. And maybe because I am connected to the spirit realm, I feel secure in that and I don't need to have they tell me what I need to know and I feel confident in that. So I don't feel the need to go further. I think it would mess it up for me. It would make it unpure for me. So I don't want to be in my brain. I don't want to be there. I want to be in the spirit realm when they're talking to me. So I feel confident in that. But I know people who do it that feel like it's a whole, another level of understanding of who they are.
yeah. Bioindividuality, right? And yeah, it's so true. And I think it's a word of caution on these topics are really good. Like it's not. I mean, I've never done it either, right? Just like it's one of these things that microdosing is one thing for clinical purposes, and we've seen success with that. But sort of these macro doses, you need, like you said, go with a proper expert clinician, preferably someone that it's properly done.
Right. Because
The setting, as they say.
so ayahuasca is a little bit more concerning to me, and I wouldn't do it. I know that many people do it, so I was, sharing with people. First of all, the way that the experience starts is that you vomit and you shit your pants. It's not my idea of a good time. I don't want to do that. So that's one of my reasons. I'm like, no, no, thank you. That doesn't sound good to me. Um, but what I know is that it goes back to the tribal times, and they automatically, I believe you would say in their microbiomes, they have,
Yeah.
and it's normal to them. But when they come here, I mean, I have people who have done it that are like me that have never done anything like that in their adulthood, and they have really bizarre experiences. I mean, I had one man, he had an experience of seeing himself hurting his children, and he actually went home and hurt himself
Ugh.
because he was so afraid it was real. So
Oh my Lord.
yeah, so a lot of what we call shamans aren't shamans. They aren't
Hmm.
shamans, they don't go to school for it. They just decide, oh, I'm in a shaman experience, so now I'm a shaman. So you have to be very careful what you hear out there and what you experience. But with ayahuasca, it's not controlled. It literally is not controlled. And so it's very scary to me. And would this person that I'm with, that is a shaman, have the experience of understanding mental illness? Would they know if I was, in depression or I had some psychosis that I'm not aware of, that this creates a trigger for me? They don't know. What would they do? And could they, and so there's been some real bad experiences. So for me, I don't do it. I have friends who do it who said it was the most outrageously amazing experience. So it's just, it
Hmm.
depends upon what your belief systems are. I'd rather stay connected pure to spirit
Yeah.
and not create any additional confusion for my mind
Yeah.
because, we go through, mental health is a tough one to keep on this planet
Hmm.
already.
Well, and you even look at like the doctors and researchers that are in the psychedelic world. They talk about mindset and setting, and it's such the American and human experience to want the quick fix, the fast track, the
Mhm.
rushing. Like they're not dealing with their mindset and heart set at all, and they're sort of flippantly taking such a sacred, powerful thing that may not even be right for them. Just
Right,
because it was,
exactly.
positive for somebody else doesn't mean it's right for them.
Exactly. They just think it's cool because everybody's doing it. There's so
Yeah.
many misconceptions in my field. It's that, this is just a
Yeah.
perfect small little example. Somebody said it's been spread around that you have to wait 3 months before your loved ones can come and talk to you because they're busy. Now, if you ask that person that's telling you that medium, do they have time there? They'll say no. And I say, what calendar are you going by? Like this 3 month thing,
Hmm.
this calendar that they
Interesting.
created, it's like the telephone game. So I tell people, make sure your connection is clear with spirit and you're hearing the message from them, that this is truth for you from them, not something you heard someone say that was teaching you. Even if it's me, if it doesn't make sense, leave it. Take what you like, leave the rest. That's where health and well-being are. And that is included in everything in our journey. There are things
Yeah.
that we just don't feel right about, and we believe it because someone told us it. No, take what you like, leave the rest. So that
Hmm.
you do your healthy. This is your journey. And you have certain, you have your own baggage, you have your own belief systems, and you're walking into a situation where someone tells you ayahuasca is safe because they did it.
Hmm.
Really look at yourself. They don't know your baggage, they don't know your experience, they don't know your body, they don't know your mindset. Did you have massive depression when you were young? Did you have some psychosis? What's your history? They don't know any of that. So a
Hmm.
doctor or an controlled environment will know all that information because they're going to
Yeah.
ask you those questions. And so they know
Yeah.
what they're doing, and they can make decisions based on clinical study, not this is going to be cool.
Yeah, you're right. There's a whole industry. It's like every wide-brimmed white hat, white tunic in on Abbot Kinney in Venice Beach is like there's a whole industry of these pop culture shamans that probably mean well, but yeah, it's definitely something
Yeah,
to at least do research before you. Just because someone says they're an expert doesn't mean they're an expert.
absolutely. It's like going to a medium, do your research.
Yeah.
People tell me, well, we'll just, not give my real name. And I go, you know what? Whether they look you up or not is not what a medium does. It doesn't matter if they looked you up. All they're going to get is a name and how they died, maybe if they're lucky, and a few other names. They're not going to get the relationship. They're not going to get their personality. So you already know they looked you up. So it's
Hmm.
insignificant because the true connection is knowing that person on the other side. They're giving you information that you can't possibly find, you can't possibly know, like your last conversation.
Hmm.
Those kinds of, or how they're going to visit you to let you know they're still there. These things, what they experienced when they were crossing over, who they saw, that they called out to you, and told you, I see my dad. We don't know this information.
Hmm.
What kind of relationship you had directly with them. That's the stuff a medium should be telling you that is a good medium. So don't worry about whether they look up a name. Who cares? Who cares? It's
Yeah.
just a name. It's
Yeah.
insignificant to the reading. The reading is
Hmm.
about tapping into the soul source. The reading is about tapping into the emotion and the love and the experience that you had with that person directly, not how they died or their name. Although
Yeah.
it's I'm known for names. It's something is easy for me. I don't know numbers where other people are known maybe for numbers. Names are just come easy to me sometimes. Um, and it's cool, but it doesn't solidify their existence of being there. The
Yeah.
information that you give should.
Yeah. What's the wildest past life regression story that comes to mind that you've seen?
Somebody floating in between, lives between lives, floating literally in the cosmos, waiting to be born. It was actually someone very well known. Um, and he came to me with his wife, and his wife is also very well known, and she couldn't go under, so I was stressing out completely. He went under just like that, and he was literally, and he had had an NDE, so I find that very interesting. He didn't tell me in the beginning. He had been
Mm.
uh, he had been a police officer at one point in another country, and he had been hit or thrown by a speeding train, and he had had
Mm.
an NDE. And so he, he was floating in the cosmos, and he was seeing all of his journeys. That to me, like all of them, it was like one big conscious journey, and they
Mm-hmm.
all made sense. And I thought that is outrageous. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
really interesting. Where I'm used to
Yeah.
seeing people go back to one life. I don't have time to go to a million different lives, in an hour and a half. And I see them go back to one life and they have an experience. And another one was somebody who was actually American Indian. And they talked about, everything that happened and what this is a person who was not American Indian here. They were as white as I am, okay,
Mm-hmm.
Caucasian all the way. They had a tremendous experience, and they knew details that you couldn't even look up. I happen to have friends who are
Mm.
American Indian, and you couldn't look those details up. And he
Mm-hmm.
knew things. I mean, experiences. And I asked him to look in the eyes of the person that he felt love for, and he said love was different then. Love was need.
Mm.
And I said, well, isn't love need now? I mean, in some way, and yes, but it was different. We saw it differently. And
Mm.
I said, do you recognize that person? And he said, yes, it's my
Mm.
wife now. And then I had him look in others' eyes, and he was like, that's my father, but not my father then. But it is my father I'm seeing today. So it was so interesting to see this experience go on where, maybe he was married to a person, well, not married, but maybe his mother was his child now. It was just really interesting.
Yeah. So that happens mainly through hypnosis. Is that what sort of a past life regression session looks like?
Yes, and
Got it.
hypnosis isn't being gone. I want to really make
Mm-hmm.
this point. When you're doing a past
Okay.
life regression, it's not like a camera playing in front of you necessarily. It might just be a feeling
Yeah.
or a knowing. And
Mm-hmm.
hypnosis, if you are driving in your car and you go from A to Z and you don't even know the in between, that's kind of a hypnotic state, I would say. That's kind of how you feel. Like you
Mm-hmm.
were driving, you got where you were headed, but you don't remember it because it's so common for you. It's kind of the
Mm-hmm.
feeling of a
Yeah.
hypnotic state.
Can you talk about the healing that you've seen in a session like that, whether it's maybe letting go of things from past lives, or maybe it's getting some uh, confirmation, some closing of a chapter from a loved one that's been lost. What have you seen as far as the mental, emotional, physical healing that happens from what you do?
Mind blowing sometimes. Sometimes I don't see it at all. No, I'm just going to be honest. Or they won't go
Mm-hmm.
under because they want to have control, and that's how they live their life.
Yeah.
Interesting. And here they bring it into that room. But I have seen people come out of or come back to the room with me and be sobbing. I've seen them sob during it, and I've seen them come back and be sobbing and saying, I understand now why I'm afraid to have children and I don't want them. Now I want them. Now I
Mm.
see. And they come, a couple of years later and say, I have a child. I would never wanted one, wouldn't do it. No way, no interest. And here they are. Maybe they saw in that past life that they lost a child and the pain was too great and they didn't want to have that experience, or that fear was still in them. So they pushed it away, and now here they are, having a child or have a
Mm-hmm.
child. I mean, that to me is healing. That is true
Mm-hmm.
mind, body, spirit healing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I've had people who couldn't. So I had a gentleman that was doing. He was in criminal minds, and he said to me, "I can't keep doing this. I'm in pain. I'm in constant pain, and I don't know why." And I've been in constant pain for years. Well, he went back and did a life regression, and he was actually shot in a previous regression, and he was in pain. He didn't die, and he was paralyzed part of his journey, but could feel his nerves. I mean, it's just really bizarre, the story. Well, ultimately what
Mm-hmm.
happened is he came back and he looked at me and he said, he had trouble with his seeing. I mean, everything was difficult for him. And he said, some of my pain is gone. What just happened? Like I have never found a way to get out of what I feel and what I see. I can see better. And I thought, wow, that's physical healing, that
Mm-hmm.
shifted because of the mind, body, spirit connection. So
Yeah.
amazing. He was able to go back and do work that he wasn't able to do anymore. So he was able to go back and film and do those things. Mind blowing to me. Really neat
Mm-hmm.
guy. And I could see the shift in him physically and emotionally, but really physically, I saw the shift
Mm-hmm.
of him being, you could tell he was apprehensive and pain and having suffering to he was
Yeah.
moving in comfort.
Yeah. Fascinating. When you look at the trauma work and things we talk a lot about in the podcast, like breath work and somatic practices and EMDR and all of these tools, I feel like, and I don't know because I'm not an expert in what you do, but in sort of, I see what you're doing as a larger umbrella of trauma work. Have you, is that ever conversations within your space? Is that something that's accepted within the larger trauma work world?
I believe, I think that, being a counselor and having connection to
Mm-hmm.
trauma and my own traumas, but certainly understanding and studying it. I think every medium should know grief like the back of their hand and understand trauma and how to deal with trauma. If they haven't studied it, they shouldn't be doing it because we can cause damage.
Right.
So trauma
Mm-hmm.
work is exactly what we do. And
Yeah.
when someone
It's the
comes
same
to me
thing.
in grief, they're in trauma. They are in trauma. And so yeah, it's the same thing. And um, so it's very important to understand trauma. Don't just set up house and say, I'm a medium and talk to the spirit world. You're going to do it wrong. You're going to say it wrong. You're going to cause harm. There are certain ways you speak to people in trauma. There's certain ways you speak about suicide. How do I know this? I have 3 suicides, both my brothers and my mother. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if someone talks to me about suicide and they tell me what I should be feeling, or how to talk about it, they're going to cause me trauma because I'm already traumatized by it, right? So we have to
Mm-hmm.
work through those traumas and be, and we can help them do that. So yes, it is very powerful in that sector, and I have respect for people who understand trauma that walk into it because that's exactly what we're doing. To sum it
Yeah.
up, that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. And I think your clinical background sets you apart in that space. Whereas, like, okay, you're not just doing mediumship and tapping into that sort of art part. You have the science part of what you do as well.
Exactly. And we learn, the students I teach, I tell them if you're unwilling to study trauma, you're unwilling to study grief, I'm unwilling to teach you and send you out there with my name.
Wow.
It's too important. And they go, well, other teachers don't teach it. I understand that, but I do. And you should
Mm-hmm.
know it. And, I'm writing a second book right now. And I have to tell you, it's all about the dark night of the soul and trauma and how to heal. Our souls are never damaged. And I really want to get that across to people. Our souls are never damaged. Our soul is a clean, divine vine to the divine. And it is there to
Mm-hmm.
help us here. If our souls were damaged and if my soul was damaged and your soul was damaged, no one would be available to help us heal because the soul is the
Mm-hmm.
power. It's the power source. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the electrical source of power. It's connected
Mm-hmm.
directly to the divine. But our hearts get broken. People die from broken hearts. It's serious stuff. Our souls
Mm-hmm.
feel the pain, but they don't get damaged by it. So we want to understand the soul level connecting to the heart level, connecting to the brain, connecting to the body. So that's another part of teaching this field is to
Mm-hmm.
understand all those connective issues or
Mm-hmm.
tissues or whatever, connective line that
Yeah.
so that we can be of service, true service to the trauma event and
Yeah.
the traumatized person.
Yeah, well said. My friend, as you know, the podcast, it's called The Art of Being Well. At the end of every episode, we have your art of being well. First question is, what's somewhere that you haven't traveled to, but it's on your bucket list for some self-care time?
Greece.
Nice. Any particular place?
No, I just want to be on that island. I want to feel that energy of separation from the rest of the world, basically, because they
Yeah.
feel that way and they live so free. There's a freedom to it. There's this, I want to feel that freedom, that I'm not
Yeah.
driving down the road and everybody's honking and cutting each other off and flipping each other and all these other things people do. I just want to be out of all of that and just feel that
Yeah.
peace.
Love it. I went to all over the Greek islands once actually with my functional medicine team. We went a couple years back. Argostoli was one of my favorite ones. Check out Argostoli. I don't hear people talking about it, but it was beautiful with like massive pine trees and sort of rocky like Tuscany type feel. Anyways, what's somewhere that you have been to that should be on other people's bucket list for self care?
Hawaii. Hawaii. I
Yeah.
have to tell you, there is something really sacred there that I can't explain. It's just part of the native feel. It has a sense of forestry and it's all in one. It's all encompassing for me. I go every year and I disconnect. I disengage with everything as best I can, depending upon if there's an emergency or something, but as best I can. And I read and I'm just in my experience, my body, my experience, and I can breathe, because
What's
trauma
do
work
you have a
and
favorite?
healing,
Yeah. Yeah.
as
Go
you
on.
know,
Yeah.
is very intensive. It's very
Yes.
intensive. This, you're a healer. We have to take the time to heal ourselves in order to be effective.
Yes. Absolutely. Keep that vessel channel clean, right? It's so true.
Yes.
You pick things up along the way, doing what we do. What is your favorite island? Do you go to
Maui.
Maui
Oh,
or yeah,
yeah, Maui. I love Kanapali area. It is, and so when it had the
yeah,
fire, I was heartbroken. I actually had an
yeah.
artist draw a picture or paint a picture of for me that lost his whole studio, and I put it on my
Ugh,
fireplace. It's huge, and it's all the downtown. It's all Lahaina. It's gorgeous.
yeah.
I'm in love with it. I look at it every day. Um,
Oh,
but that to me is it, it has I know it's a tourist area, but it also has a sense, you can drive down the road and you're in waterfalls, you know.
yeah,
So it just has so
yeah,
many different elements to it.
yeah. It does. It's a special. I love Maui too. It's so really beautiful, and the people. And I think you brought up a great point. It's like the fires that happened there. I mean, devastating what's happening in Southern California, but because there's so much attention and wealthy, famous people, we forgot that like Maui went through that, right? And we paid attention to it for like a week, and
Yeah.
then we moved on.
And they
So,
lost so many
th-
lives. I mean, I know the inside story because I've gone to Maui my whole life and I have friends there that, told me the inside story and it's some really amazing experiences, where that there was spirit in there. You just know it. They had firemen that were trapped behind their fire truck and they were in their getup and the fire was completely surrounding them. There was nowhere to go and they were going to die. And one of the firemen, a brand new fireman, jumped in his car and drove through the fire, hoping to come out on the other side, praying. And he ended up coming out on the other side to a police van, got in the van, drove it back through the fire. And it was excuse me, it wasn't a van, it was a police car, got in the car, drove through the fire. They couldn't fit. So they had to strip their gear off and get in this car while the fire is burning around them, ready to take their lives. And I mean, I'm talking circling them. And they drove out. Now, the car didn't blow up. The
mhm,
car didn't light on fire and melt, like other cars. The cars were melting. This is a
mhm,
miracle. So does
mhm,
that mean that the others weren't loved? No, that's not what that means. It
mhm,
simply means that somehow, some way, the miracle was achieved. Because I know Spirit
mhm,
is trying to help each and every one of them. And sometimes they
mhm,
just can't achieve it. Maybe the human decides not to take the risk. Maybe that would be
mhm,
it. Maybe they decide a different direction. So again, there's that free will jumping in.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. What's a book that you've read in the past year? It could be fiction, nonfiction that just was paradigm shifting for you. I'm having a running Art of Being Well book club list here.
I haven't, in all honesty, I've only read like just silly fun stuff. I don't
It's
have
okay.
time to read. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you're
I
busy with
read,
clients.
yeah, I am. But I do listen to a lot of podcasts, and they're very powerful to me. And I'm actually, after this call, I'm getting on a call with Doc Steven from HeartMath. So, I'm
Oh,
very
amazing.
involved with that. Yeah. I'm very involved with that kind of thing. So I'm always, talking to, I love speaking to doctors because I really feel that they've studied and they're so deep in their knowledge, and so
Hmm.
I gain knowledge, and so I do that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I did read, I always read Raymond Moody's stuff, and he's got a new thing that's out about um not near death experience but shared